нашим обязательствам, строгом выполнении всех ранее подписанных двухсторонних и многосторонних договоров и соглашений. Еще раз подтверждаем свою приверженность соблюдению преемственности и развитию дружественных отношений со своими зарубежными партнерами, защите прав и интересов инвесторов, обеспечении безопасности иностранных граждан, находящихся на территории нашей страны. На сегодняшний день с возвращением внутриполитической ситуации в правовое русло правительства Кыргызстана, все государственные органы, министерства, административные органы работают в штатном режиме, выполняет все возложенные на него задачи. Ну, также наше Министерство иностранных дел, его загранучреждения, а также подведомственные организации также работают в обычном режиме, в том числе по вопросам наших двухстороннего сотрудничества, многостороннего сотрудничества в части защиты прав и интересов наших граждан в иностранных государствах. Исполняющим обязанности президента Кыргызской Республики премьер-министром нашей страны Садыром Джапаровым первоочередными задачами определена эта борьба с коррупцией, криминалом, организованной нас период. К сожалению, у меня намечена через буквально некоторое время очередная встреча. Я бы в связи с этим хотел бы завершить свое участие в данном мероприятии. Наш посол, значит, господин Джумалиев, он будет у нас участвовать в семинаре. Я надеюсь, значит, что все вопросы, которые будет интересоваться вас, и те вопросы, те проблемы, которые вопросы будут у нас, я надеюсь, наш посол на все ваши вопросы ответит. Ну, в связи с этим я хотел еще раз, конечно, выразить сожаление, что не смогу до конца участвовать, и хотел бы еще раз поблагодарить вас за внимание.
Excellency, thank you very much for your contribution. Since you let us know in advance that your time is limited due to other urgent and important obligations, I am opening our Q&A session for at least a few questions immediately. Dear participants, if you want to ask a question, please feel free to tell us about your wish by using the raising hand button on the lower bar. Our technical support will unmute your microphone, and please say who you are and name the institution you work for. Please be very brief. So actually, I don't know why, but I cannot see that someone is raising a hand. So I can read a question. There is from one participant. Oh, no, sorry. So there are no. That's the problem. There is one there is one contribution in the chat room. I would like to read, and then the Deputy Minister, please feel free to answer. So there's one person writing, and I'm now reading it in Russian. Легитимность властей в Кыргызстане под большим сомнением. People are worrying about legitimacy of the power, the political power in Kyrgyzstan. And this is exactly what the EU statement was about as well. So what about the transfer of power, Mr. Madmarov? This was actually a big benefit of Kyrgyz Republic, and the European Union sees it as a beacon of democracy in Central Asia. But now what we currently see is that the new president is not only the president, but at the same time the prime minister. So what about the separation of powers? So because the president, he is elected by the people, by the population, and the prime minister, he is elected by the parliament. So how will you secure the separation of power in Kyrgyzstan and the principle of control?
Спасибо за такой интересный вопрос, который, наверное, интересует многих. Но в соответствии с нашим законодательством там строго указано о том, что если, значит, с учетом отказа нашего спикера парламента от исполнения обязанностей главы государства, она должна передаваться премьер-министру нашей страны. И это строго расписано в Конституции Кыргызстана. И в соответствии с этой статьей Конституции и премьер-министр был обязан принять исполнение обязанностей президента. То есть этот случай, в законодательстве отражено, и в соответствии с этим пунктом и это было передано, эти полномочия. Но, как вы знаете, что, в принципе, процесс сейчас на месте у нас не стоит. Уже объявлены выборы президента. Также, значит, намечена конституционная реформа на следующем году. И вот эта такая достаточно нештатная ситуация, которая сложилась, она решилась в рамках, мы считаем, нашего законодательства.
Thank you very much, Mr. Madmarov. I still cannot see any questions, so...
К сожалению, господин Эм, к сожалению, у меня времени уже истекает, мне уже надо, уже следующую мне встреча начинается через времени, и я просил бы меня еще раз извинить, что мне уже надо идти на следующую встречу, уважаемые.
Excellency, thank you so much for sharing your insights today. We were delighted to have you. More than 50 people are following this event online, and this shows clearly that the political environment in Brussels is closely following current developments in Kyrgyzstan. All the best for the democratic path of your country, and all the best for yourself. See you soon.
Спасибо еще раз за понимание. Значит, надеюсь на успешное проведение сегодняшнего семинара, что она будет очень полезна и для нашей аудитории, которая следит за этими событиями. Спасибо еще раз за ваше понимание.
Мы сейчас продолжаем проведением нашего семинара. Слово передается господину послу Республики Кыргызстан Муктара Джумалиеву. Он уже ровно 10 лет назад поучаствовал в программе диалога в Брюсселе, которая была организована Фондом Ханнса Зайделя. Тогда господин Джумалиев занимал должность заместителя руководителя администрации президента Республики Кыргызстан. Ваше превосходительство, я прошу вас выступить.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Dr. Marcus. Thank you very much for convening this event. I think this is very timely, and we have already planned a number of events together, and unfortunately, due to the COVID situation, it has been postponed or expired. I don't know. So many things has been changed. Our plans is changing everywhere in the world. And however, we are shifting to the new format of the consultations, discussions, and I'm very much happy today to participate in this seminar, which is I see that actually gives a lot of interest from the international community, also from the civil society, private sector. A number of participants says that it's a great interest of what we are doing in Kyrgyzstan, even though there is a lot of interesting events happening in the world, including today's elections in the United States. However, the situation in Kyrgyzstan, we have, is also one of the challenging situation for us. It's challenging situation for our constitutions. So we have, I think now all of my colleagues, also ambassadors, should do the same to follow with the constitutions, what constitution says, because a lot of questions, and in the beginning of your presentation, you said that this, referring to the statement of the High Representative, which is about his question on the transfer of power in Kyrgyzstan. I would like to say, first of all, that we are proud of our cooperation with the European Union, and we're also proud of that we have our democratic partnership with the European Union. We are in partnership not only at the political level, we are in partnership at the civil society level, at the youth level, at the people-to-people level. Even we are now discussing the new platform, which is related to our economic partnership. Not only simply economic partnership, but we are referring on green economic partnership. And last year when the ministers met, there was one good signal to have a new platform called to have the forum on economic cooperation with European Union and Central Asia. So we have already a number of plans, but however, so many things, as I said before, it was changed. And the seminar's name about the implication on the political implications and due to the current political events in Kyrgyzstan. My personal feeling that there is no any bad political implications or whatever. So this is a normal political process we are facing in Kyrgyzstan. This is a democratic process, first of all. I would say democratic process, and I hope the European Union and our partners in the European Union recognize that this is a democratic process, and that is why their call for Kyrgyzstan just strictly to follow its democratic path. So this is why I think today what we see every day in Kyrgyzstan, in the parliament, definitely it is so many criticism now in terms of our process in the parliament. that they are taking decisions, they are approving the new prime minister and then the acting prime minister. But however, this is the only constitutional order which we have. So we cannot now elect our comparing to the situation of 2010. So now we have legitimate parliament, even though the constitution says that the parliament should serve for 5 years. Otherwise, that we have the next article according to our constitution, which says that the parliament should serve until the first meeting of the new elected parliament. So then they will leave their legitimacy after the first meeting of the new elected parliament. So since we failed on the first elections, so I think it is very good that our parliament they were able to get together, and now they continue their legitimate work to serve as the members of the parliament. So, and I see even from today morning that the Speaker of the Parliament resigned and elected the new Speaker of the Parliament, Mr. Talat Mamedov. So the political situation in Kyrgyzstan is such that we are, of course, we are facing political difficulties in Kyrgyzstan after the elections. So it's, I think it's maybe a normal process. And then we are trying to do whatever we can do using our constitutional order in order to enter into the legitimate path. Now, what we have now we have the dates of the elections of the president. So this is very important. We should elect the new president. There is already a number of candidates expressed their willingness to participate. This is, I think, this is a good process what we are facing in our democracy. I hope we will pass through these difficulties, and the outcome will make our country more strength and more good, stronger platform for the future sustainable growth and prosperity in Kyrgyzstan. I see how very active the civil society in Kyrgyzstan. So this actually complaining of the elections was it started from the civil society, and now we cannot do anything without participating of the strong civil society. They are our helpers. They're helpers for the government. They're helpers for parliament. So they're working openly. So we are observing the active civil society participation in all these political debates and consultations in our next elections process and next political life in Kyrgyzstan. That is why I strongly believe that European Union and our partners, they do recognize our political process as a democratic process. We strongly believe that, and we count on the support of our European partners in this situation, that we still need the support of our European partners in this difficult times. The difficulties, what is difficulties links now in Kyrgyzstan? This is, first of all, as everywhere, it's a COVID situation. COVID situation, economic situation is not very easy. We have also the problems to the access to the market in trade in everywhere. I think this is not related to the political situation in Kyrgyzstan. This is related to the overall situation in the world. So the world economy is digressing. So that is why it's of course it's Kyrgyzstan. We cannot be a part of this bad regressions of the world economy. So we are part of this process, and we are also facing in Kyrgyzstan. However, we do have our political consultations. We also discuss now the political consultation with the European Union at the level of the ministers. So we are planning our events at the political level. I don't see any challenges or problems for the partnership between Kyrgyzstan and European Union. European Union is a reliable partner for Kyrgyzstan, and we are continuing our work, consultations, both political, economically, and at different levels, including at the level of civil society. I would stop here, and then maybe we'll be happy to answer to the questions. Thank you.
Excellency, thank you very much for your short speech. We clearly understood that there are difficulties in place in your country, but we understood as well that you are entirely convinced that the country and different political forces will overcome these problems. We already have heard two leading voices from Kyrgyzstan. Without further ado, I'm handing over to Boris Yarocevich, Head of Division Central Asia of the European External Action Service. Mr. Yarocevich, please, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. Good morning or good afternoon to everybody. I'm extremely happy to be part of this very timely webinar. Of course, it would have been better to meet physically, but let's try to take the best of the VTC. I would like to start by saying that the Kyrgyz Republic is important partner for the EU in Central Asia. It's the only parliamentary regime in Central Asia. We have a vibrant civil society, as it was said, vibrant media environment as well. And we have a particular relation with the Kyrgyz Republic. It was said that we have completed the negotiation of an enhanced partnership and cooperation agreement. The Kyrgyz Republic benefits from the GSP Plus regime, which is a trade facilitation regime. And of course, Kyrgyzstan is a recipient of important EU aid. Over 7 years, it's more than 170 million euros. And particularly in the context of the COVID, I mean, we have made a special effort, and all together we have now, in the past weeks and months, we have transferred, or we have crisis. We have, of course, been following very closely the recent developments, and for us, the bottom line has always been respect of the constitution, and I must admit that we have been concerned by the developments because there is a perception, which is probably not true, but there is a perception that the constitution and the processes have been a little bit squeezed. And of course, any country has the right to choose its regime. I mean, to go back to a more presidential regime. There is no ideal model, but we would continue to advocate for the respect of the law, and also the respect of the citizens. The demonstration after the falls have been about parliamentary elections, and we would very much welcome renewed parliamentary election as soon as possible, because people were unhappy with the 4th of October. So it's fair to respond to the civil society request and to have as soon as possible fair, transparent parliamentary elections. I understand that now we have set up Kyrgyzstan has set up presidential elections on the 10th of January, and that most probably, I mean, there will be a referendum to amend the constitution.
И референдум по внесению поправок в Конституцию. Это тоже мы рассматриваем в позитивном ключе. Это тоже наша рекомендация всегда сводится к тому, чтобы представить проект поправок к Конституцию в рамках Совета Европы для оценки, для рассмотрения этих поправок с точки зрения соответствия конституционным требованиям и легитимности. После
Welcome the invitation of the OSCE ODIHR observers to observe all the elections, both the presidential and we hope very soon the parliamentary elections. We cannot hide that we had some concerns. We have still some concerns, and we would like to avoid, let's say, the perception that there are pressures on the Electoral Commission, that there are pressures on the members of the parliament. So it's extremely important, this perception issue, that maybe everything is right step by step according to constitution or to the law, but overall the picture might give the impression of kind of centralization of power and let's say move to a stronger regime. We welcome, I mean, the priorities of the new government, of course. I mean, the fight against corruption, which was announced, is extremely important in any country, and the first steps with some arrests are quite positive. But of course, now we need follow up. I mean, legal cases and, if possible, recovery of the assets according to the Kyrgyz legislation. And we also still have some human rights concerns. I mean, we see that some pieces of legislation to control more closely NGOs and so on have been prepared, were suspended, and we hope that this draft laws will not be passed in the end. We also see that media freedom has a little bit been restricted in the past year. So there are issues on which we have to work on together, and particularly the Kyrgyz government has to work. We have also the important issue for Kyrgyzstan and for Europe is the protection of foreign investments. It's an important element of our future enhanced partnership and cooperation agreement. And if rights of investors are not protected, European companies will not come to Kyrgyzstan. So it's extremely important in the current context to guarantee that no business are seized or no investments are blocked. We are working with the government. I mean, we have contacts with the foreign minister, of course. We have invited Mr. Kazakbayev to the next EU Central Asia ministerial meeting, which will take place on the 17th of November, chaired by High Representative Borrell and with the participation of the 5 foreign ministers from Central Asia. My colleagues on the spot have had contacts with the Ministry of Justice or Finance. So we are continuing to work with the government, but we really need now to have the presidential election right on the 10th of January, and also to have parliamentary elections fixed as soon as possible. And also we have to know the conditions in which the constitution will be changed. So we welcome once again the advice of the Venice Commission in that respect. So overall, our relations continue, but as the Kyrgyz Republic is maybe an example in Central Asia when it comes to parliamentary system. I mean, we are maybe more demanding with Kyrgyzstan than we are with other countries around the world. But qui aime bien châtie bien, we say in French, meaning we expect a lot from the Kyrgyz Republic because of the past, because of our good relations. So I will stop here, and of course we'll be ready to respond to any question. Thank you.
Mr. Yarocevich, thank you very much. for your statement, and you explained profoundly what the European Union is concerned about, is worrying about. There is something precious at stake from the view of the European Union, as far as I correctly understood what you have just said. You underlined how important it is that civil society takes part in political life, in a democratic political system. I think this is something we could talk even more about later on. But of course, and this is the last sentence you said, in terms of the expectations Brussels has towards Bishkek. So maybe expectations towards Kyrgyzstan are even higher than to other countries around the world, because it is Kyrgyzstan which is regarded as an example for a democratic choice in Central Asia, a region which is extremely important in global policy. As the fourth and last speaker for today, I am kindly giving the floor to my deeply appreciated colleague from Bishkek, Dr. Max Meyer, running our project in Central Asia and Bishkek-based. Dr. Meyer, thank you very much for this renewed cooperation, trustful and reliable as always. We're looking forward to learning more about how you assess the situation in the country you are based in since 2009. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. M. Dear estimated audience, it's a great honor for me to address to you here. Also, my best regards to Excellency Ambassador Джумалиев. I just want to give him some reminder that on the October 28, 2010, both of us were speaker in a conference organized by Hannsa Zайделя Foundation in Brussels after the Second Revolution. By this time, you were the deputy head of President's administration, and now, after 10 years, again, we are together during this session. So I have titled my personal contribution here with Kyrgyzstan Third Revolution and What Now? So I was now the witness personally during 3 revolutions initiated by Kyrgyz people. On the slide behind me, you can see here just some of my memories from the revolutions in 2010 and 2020. And there were always justified reasons for the revolutions: corruption, political mismanagement, nepotism, and now in 2020, voter fraud. 3 presidents had to leave their post, 2 of them now living abroad. One has transferred his power like foreseen in the constitution, but is now in prison. So, my dear Kyrgyz friends, this is all somehow difficult to understand for rational thinking European brains. Of course, Kyrgyzstan has its own dynamic. It's a country sui generis, like Latins were saying, of his special character, with his special conditions. But is it really necessary to destroy each time during the revolutions your parliament and government buildings, to loot shops and factories? That all makes your people's revolutions not more likable and gives also a little bit a bad, crude image to Kyrgyzstan. If your state cannot protect his own parliament and government buildings, how it will protect foreign investments? Each political group emerging from the revolution in Kyrgyzstan as a winner promises to their citizens to make everything better, to bring better life. But what is the reality? First of all, they change all staff in public administration and affiliated enterprises with their own people, often without looking for any qualification requirement. Again, you can say this is the logic of any revolution process, but I have to tell you, difficult to understand for factually thinking European decision makers. So, after third revolution, Kyrgyzstan is looking up in a very uncertain future. The most recent political history of Kyrgyzstan includes violent changes of power, inter-ethnic conflicts, and clashes on the borders also with neighbors. See the last 2 years, the Kyrgyz-Tajik border area. Together with chronic economic problems now intensified by COVID-19, this contributed to the political mobilization and political activism of the citizens. The relatively low legitimacy of legal political institutions and processes, including elections, emphasizes the high role of the street, which complements the informal legitimacy of political power. The willingness to use violence to achieve their goals leads to radicalization of protests and a significant number of injured and victims of clashes. The experience of previous revolutions in Kyrgyzstan shows that the current rapid development of events is not something unusual for the country, but reflects the state of its political institutions and also the political culture. And there is now a new challenge of ethnic nationalism with religious elements in the country. This situation has been rising possibly long ago, but obviously intensified in post-election period. What are now the implications of all these events for the relations of Kyrgyzstan with the European Union and also with Germany? My dear Kyrgyz friends, you are close to a point where you can lose your most valuable brand and asset, to be the democratic island of Central Asia. You should protect and keep your relatively better democratic achievements, support your active civil society and your successful local self-government units who both did an amazing job now during the ongoing pandemic to overcome economical and social problems of your population. You need urgently political and administrative reforms. For a country with a population of a little bit more than 6 million, therefore 1 million working in Russia, you do not need 6 administrative levels layers. You should make the political management and decision-making process faster, more stringent, transparent, and easy to understand for the citizens. The president, and according to my opinion, the president and his administration have to take the political leadership in the country. The parliament will be responsible for the legislation and control of the presidency to secure a balance of power. The parliament should have also a second chamber where all regions or all ethnics of the country are represented, like this famous Kurultai, also with a concrete authority to act. Nowadays, the decision-making power is distributed between president, parliament, government, and also State Committee for National Security, a construction which makes it difficult to run the country. People of Kyrgyzstan, they like their democracy since generations and since the time they were living in tribes as a nomad. Their model of democracy has a long history and is different to our European-style democracy. Please keep this always in mind. Let's just accept Kyrgyzstan like it is, with all his plus and minus. Also, the new Kyrgyz political leadership should keep this always in mind. Kyrgyz people do not like authoritarian governance. and they are very sensitive for any abuse of state power. And not to forget, they are very brave people, always ready to defend their freedom and ideals. Kyrgyzstan nowadays is facing a huge challenge. In just 6 months, the small country should organize 3 elections for president, for parliament, and for most of the local communities, cities and municipalities, as maybe also a referendum or plebiscite for constitutional amendments. Until now, just presidential elections are scheduled for January 10th, 2021. And the big task is present to avoid the crucial mistakes which were committed during the last parliamentary elections on October 4, leading to this new revolution. We are talking about vote buying and illegal use of administrative resources, both confirmed by the decision of the Central Election Commission on October 6. A first step in the right direction was done. On October 22, 2020, the Kyrgyz parliament cancelled voting in form number 2, reduced also the electoral threshold for parties to 3% instead of present 7%. The size of election budget deposit to 1 million Kyrgyz som, which is around 12,500 euro from before 5 million. That will make it easier also for smaller political parties and also new political parties to win seats in the 7th parliament convocation. Coming back to this famous voting in form number 2, the law provides a scrutiny period for voters to request corrections of their records or change their voting address, allowing them to vote at a place other than their registered place of residence. Some 441,012% of all voters use the right to temporarily change their voting address. As a result, around 30 polling stations exceeded the upper limit of 2,500 voters prescribed by the election law. Many ODIHR interlocutors, including most of the contesting political parties, expressed serious concerns about the possible misuse by parties and candidates of this right, and alleged that the changes were an indication of a vote-buying scheme. But Kyrgyzstan, be sure you never walk alone. I'm sure that like our Hannsa Zайделя Foundation, also European Union will support you as an important partner country to further develop your democratic island with freedom and prosperity for everybody. And maybe just a last sentence, because Kyrgyzstan is far away from Brussels. It's more than 7,000 kilometers. That is this small, nice country, mountainous country in Central Asia, where you know the people with this nice head of organic wool felt they are carrying every time. Thank you.
Dr. Майер, you explained in your statement pretty profoundly what comes into a true European's mind while taking notice of current developments in Bishkek, both in the streets and the political institutions. Thank you very much for your contribution based on an experience of more than 10 years in Kyrgyzstan. You really have something to tell. I'm now opening the floor for the second Q&A session. Please use either the question and answer function or the raising hand button. So there is already one question I see in this Q&A room, but before I come to this, I would like to ask a question myself, and I would like to touch upon what just Dr. Майер has said, because we can clearly see the screen behind him, and so this describes a seminar that was organized, no, not, but you talked about the seminar which was organized 10 years ago after the so-called second revolution, when President Bakiev had to leave the country. And this brings me to one very important question I would like to address to the ambassador. It is of the utmost importance for a democratic state that the power is transferred in a peaceful way. And what we have seen now is the fourth revolution in the country since 1991. And this, of course, brings me to the question, why is that so? As a person following the situation from abroad, one could get the impression that a revolution may happen at any time. And what meaning do elections have at the end of the day when the street takes such important decisions? So why voting? So there seems to be some kind of a tradition of revolutions in the country. What do you think about that, Mr. Ambassador?
Well, thank you very much. I would like also thank for the previous speakers, Dr. Max Meyer, for mentioning or reminding me that the revolution of 2010, I think it was the same discussion, but in person, also in Brussels, we were discussing the situation in Kyrgyzstan. Comparing to that situation, what we faced in 2010, and comparing the situation this year, to 2020, I think this is a really so big difference from that period. At that time, we have no legitimate government, legitimate parliament. There was only the interim president, which rights was confirmed by the referendum, and she was the first lady in the post-Soviet Union, the first lady president, Rosa Otunbayeva, and I had a chance to work with her. That situation was completely different, a terribly difficult situation for Kyrgyzstan when we were on such a strong political crisis. However, the citizens of Kyrgyzstan and people of Kyrgyzstan together, so they united and they passed through this challenge. The situation of 2020 is, as my deputy minister said, so it's under the pressure of the peoples because of their unhappiness. So it was he was pushed, the president, ex-president Jaymakov, who was pushed to leave the power because he was not able actually to provide the open, transparent elections, even though the results of the elections was not declared so far. However, he decided, even though he had a strong international support, so he decided he decided to leave the power. And this is normal. So many experiences and cases in the world when the leaders leaves the power. And in our situation, it was really one of the dangerous cases not to leave the power. So he decided to leave power because no one life could actually be accepted by the people if he would die, or even more provoked for the clashes in this period of difficult situation. So that is why we recognized, so we do understand that this was the peaceful transfer of power, and we have the legitimate parliament, legitimate government, and we don't have a president. So however, we have acting president, and there will be the elections of the president. Well, your questions is asking why it's happening. So there is a lot of actually arguments why it's happening in Kyrgyzstan. We have very strong civil society. So this is first of all. Why we have your side? So Boris Yarocevich and other colleagues, they already mentioned that the European Union as a partner for Kyrgyzstan, they are investing in the civil society. So we have our own democratic institution already established in the Kyrgyz Republic. Vibrant civil society, vibrant also press and media, and we have youth. So the young populations, they do not actually want to accept the economic reforms or whatever they are seeing in this period of time. So they are using the right to oppose the current economic situations, the current economic reforms, the current political situations, and this pushes to government to do what they ask. And this year we saw that the young politicians, they came now to a power. For example, Dr. Laziv, he was actively participating in this demonstrations and elections campaign. Then finally he became a Minister of Agriculture, and I'm following today this day how he's doing his job as an agriculture minister. I think the young population, youth, so they are now they are grown up and they are asking for the reforms. They do want to live in a better economic situations. They want to live in a better political situations. They are demanding from the politicians to do better reforms. So that is why sometime in Kyrgyzstan we see such a political crisis when it comes to the elections, political processes in the country. I think this is normal process, and I do accept what Dr. Майер says, that in Kyrgyzstan we have the freedom-loving people, which is very crucial. So we cannot actually exchange this for anything. So then we cannot. It is while you are asking or calling Kyrgyzstan to protect your freedom. I myself, I see there is no way. Actually, there is no way to live in Kyrgyzstan in any other conditions. So we have to live in a democratic country where the freedom of people, rights, human rights is one of the important components of the life in our country. I would like also to mention a few other aspects, which is that actually makes our future cooperation with the European Union is very important. So we enjoy so many agreements with the European Union, and one of these is the new expanded European Union Kyrgyzstan agreement on partnership, so which we have already completed on our negotiations. I think this will give us the new opportunities for further strengthening of our economic relations. So we hope that we could do it, we could finalize it, we could sign this whenever we will have, we will pass through this political process. And if there is any other questions, I'm ready also to answer to the questions.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. There are at least 3 more further questions I would like to read aloud. There's one question for you, Mr. Ambassador. There's one question for Dr. Майер, and there's one question for Mr. Ярочевич. So this plays out very well. The question addressed to the ambassador, I would like to read in Russian, since the participant typed it in Russian as well. Вопрос к послу. Имеется ли возможность...
Question to ambassador: is there a possibility or an opportunity of joining, or for Kyrgyzstan joining to the European Union structures such as Eastern Partnership or similar initiatives? The question to Dr. Майер will also be read in
this question is from Aida Musaeva, PhD student in Hungary. Dr. Майер, thank you very much for the personal opinion. Could you please explain which 6-level administrative power you have mentioned in your speech? What do you suggest in this regard to Kyrgyzstan? Thanks. So first of all, we would like to hear the two answers, and then we will come to the third question addressed to Mr. Yarocevich. Please, Ambassador. You have to switch on your microphone, please. You have to unmute it.
Many thanks for these questions. At the moment, there are no consultations going on.
И, то есть, соответственно, нет никаких консультаций, мы не проводим никаких консультаций по данному вопросу. Кыргызстан работает с Евросоюзом в рамках нашего нового соглашения, расширенного соглашения о сотрудничестве и партнерстве. Мы считаем, что он дает достаточно хорошую основу для расширения нашего сотрудничества. Он переподтверждает все наши, так скажем, взятые обязательства с обоих сторон в рамках многосторонних институтов и региональных институтов, в том числе в рамках Евразийского экономического союза, в рамках наших обязательств, в рамках ВТО. И я думаю, что в ближайшем будущем мы завершим это соглашение, и оно даст нам нормальное, хорошее, полноценное, так скажем, правовую, двустороннюю правовую основу для того, чтобы развивать наше сотрудничество дальше с Евросоюзом именно в экономическом плане. Там есть хорошие предпосылки. В том числе мы также думаем, что после того, как мы уже подпишем это соглашение, мы с Евросоюзом можем, наверное, все-таки уже подумать над вопросами его имплементации. Вот именно для нас очень важно сейчас экономическое направление в этом плане. В том числе мы разговариваем также о вопросах упрощения нашего визового режима между Кыргызстаном и Евросоюзом. То есть об этом мы тоже говорим, поскольку, с одной стороны, Кыргызстан является получателем экономической помощи от Евросоюза, и господин Ярочевич озвучил сумму 170 миллионов евро, но мы тоже, со своей стороны, мы тоже не просто являемся получателем, мы тоже даем что-то. Допустим, в течение 10 лет мы Евросоюзу предоставляем безвизовый режим. То есть это тоже, можно сказать, так скажем, вклад нашей стороны. То есть и очень тоже надеемся на продолжение. То есть мы нацелены на то, чтобы Евросоюз и туристы из Евросоюза продолжали к нам ездить на такой, скажем, безвизовой форме. Также мы получаем от европейской страны, это вопрос касается всемирной торговой системы, всемирной системы преференций, это односторонняя торговля, то есть практически это свободная торговля в одну сторону с Европейским Союзом. Мы также наблюдаем, что наш товарооборот с Евросоюзом растет. Вместе с этим мы со своей стороны берем обязательство выполнять 27 конвенций в сфере по правам человека, то есть и другим конвенциям МОД. Это тоже очень важно. И почему важно для нас, для Кыргызстана, ВСП? И я об этом тоже озвучивал на разных платформах. Инструмент ВСП дает, собственно, малому и среднему бизнесу Кыргызстана выходить на этот рынок так скажем, в режиме свободной торговли, без пошлин. При этом это только в одну сторону, в сторону Евросоюза. Поэтому этот хороший инструмент, этим инструментом надо пользоваться. И с другой стороны, страна берет на себя обязательство выполнять вот эти конвенции в рамках ООН, которые мы и так должны выполнять, но тем не менее эти инструменты, они переподтверждаются. То есть, так скажем, инструмент, можно сказать, верификации исполнения наших международных обязательств. Я думаю, это очень справедливый инструмент для того, чтобы получать безвизовый режим для бизнеса именно на европейских рынках. Другой вопрос, что мы все-таки должны давать бизнесу более предсказуемые условия. Об этом я говорю и нашим партнерам на разных площадках, о том, что инструмент ВСП+, он должен быть предсказуем, то есть он не должен быть на 2 года, на 3 года, потому что как только происходят такие сложные ситуации в плане политического кризиса или политических вопросов, то этот инструмент может становиться сразу же недоступен для частного сектора. Но частный сектор ни при чем. Частный сектор ни при чем. Здесь все-таки этот инструмент должен быть предсказуем для частного сектора. Мы берем обязательства на выполнению этих обязательств, поэтому частный сектор сам требует от страны выполнения этих обязательств, конвенций, правил, так скажем, доступа на мировые рынки. Поэтому для нас инструмент ВСП плюс для частного сектора должен быть предсказуем на 10 лет, на 15 лет, чтобы мы все-таки, если хотим ориентироваться на рынки Европейского Союза. Что касается миграции, вот господин Майер тоже заметил, что Кыргызстан является все-таки с 1 миллионом населения, которое проживает в России. Да, это очень важный фактор. Это очень важный фактор. Россия для нас является стратегическим партнером. Мы участвуем, мы являемся членами ЕС, поэтому никаких проблем, я думаю, там у нас не возникает. Все-таки они получают равные права на рынке России по поставке своих услуг как в качестве мигрантов. Поэтому мы призываем тоже Евросоюз как основного, так скажем, партнера ООН по многосторонним ООНовским инструментам ратифицировать соглашение по миграции. Об этом озвучил наш заместитель министра. Мы тоже думаем, что наши мигранты должны все-таки получать равные права и в странах ЕС, то есть чтобы они получали, так скажем, доступ на эти рынки. Особенно вот в период ковида для нас показалось, что наши мигранты оказались не совсем в равных условиях. Вот, они должны были, мы их эвакуировали. Мы их эвакуировали из ЕС. Мы также обращались в различные международные организации, в том числе в МОН. Вот, и все-таки я думаю, что понятные условия в рамках институтов ООН для нас тоже будет очень важно. Поэтому мы все-таки как партнеры ЕС по демократии, мы тоже все-таки хотим, чтобы для нас вот эти вот инструменты ООН тоже были совершенно понятны. Поэтому призываем, озвучиваем нашу позицию, что мы хотим, чтобы ЕС ратифицировал конвенцию по защите прав мигрантов. Спасибо.
Спасибо, господин посол. Как вы сказали, вы не только ответили на вопрос, задан господином Бекиевым, но еще дали больше информации. Сейчас слово передается господину доктору Майеру. Вопрос о 6 уровнях административного аппарата в Кыргызстане. Что вы предлагаете?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. M. So
Большое
nowadays,
спасибо, господин Эм.
the President's administration with up to 500 employees and experts. The second level is then the government apparatus, again 500 experts. Then you have the regional level, it's oblast. Then you have the rayon level, it's district. Then you have the level of city administrations and village administrations. And above all, during last 3 years, you had also very active the State Committee for National Security with his organs. So this is a very difficult model to take decisions. If you nowadays go to the mayor of a municipality, you will find his table, working table, full with decisions coming from different levels of administrations he should follow, which in reality is very difficult. And this system also is expensive. So I recommend, first of all, that this regional administration level, oblast level, is cancelled. In the country, we need 20 mega districts, rayons, for administration which are sufficient. And we need elected by people, heads of districts, hakims, and also the mayors of the big cities like Osh and Bishkek elected by the people, and give them their own independent budget, give them their independent councils, and then you will see we will have good development here in this country. But now taking this opportunity, because I read also parallel the comments, not just the questions which are coming here. Look, I'm responsible for Central Asia for a foundation. The statements I gave here in this open environment, I cannot do in the neighbor countries, impossible. This discussion culture we have only here in Kyrgyzstan, which is a big plus also for the further development of the country. But for the development of the country, we have also to see the realities. And the reality also, and the reason for this last revolution is that in 30 years, the culture of political parties here in the country did not develop. People are unsatisfied with political parties. So I'm addressing here to political party leaders to think about it and to make their job better in the future. There are a lot of young people, civil society representatives. I know you are unsatisfied, but then you have not just to criticize, you have also to get organized. Then establish your civil movements, join new parties and raise your voice. But just to sit down now and to criticize will be not sufficient, because as Mr. Ambassador told us, we need now also, if you don't like, you need this parliament and you need also this acting president and also the prime minister. And you need also today the elected speaker of the parliament, also if you don't like, because this is very important that the country will be stable. And so therefore, I also, maybe I have my concerns, but there is no alternative. But all who are unsatisfied and write their comments also here during this conference, I ask you, be active, get organized, join civil movements, join new political forces and raise your voice. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Meyer. I would like now to give the floor to Mr. Yarocevich, but first of all, of course, I need to let him know what the question is about. I would like even to add a second question, because a second question came in and I would like to take this opportunity, of course. The first person asking the question is called Danik, and this person is writing about a man called Matraimov, and Danik says that the arrest of this person was rather a show. So Danik writes that numerous journalistic investigations clearly well, it came out from these journalistic investigations very clearly that Matraimov clan actively intervenes in politics in Kyrgyzstan, creating and financing political parties, as well as promoting their people in various government posts. The question is, will the EU investigate into money laundering by Matraimov's clan, for example, in Germany, freeze their assets and restrict admission for them to the European Union? That's the first question. The second question comes from a lady called Aida Alumbaeva. She is a lecturer at the International University of Central Asia. Ms. Alumbaeva welcomes that the EU welcomes the EU decision to delay the release of €6 million for digitalization to Kyrgyzstan until parliamentary elections are held. She is worrying about the democratic path of the countries. She says that parliamentarian democracy in Kyrgyzstan is in danger, as Mr. Japarov, the new president, both president and prime minister, pushes a single-mandated parliament, and now the development is about to demolish a proportional system. Aida wishes there could be more pressure on interim president from international actors, including OSCE. Will there be more pressure from the EU and in which cases? These are the two questions to you, Mr. Yaroshev.
Yes, thank you very much on this high-profile case. Of course, for us, it's important that there is no impunity when it comes to anti-corruption, especially if it's a priority of the new Prime Minister and the new acting President. And we would welcome that everything is done according to the law when it comes to fair trial, when it comes to conviction, when it comes to the return of assets. I mean, there is a relevant legislation in the Kyrgyz Republic which should be applied. And we are not for selective justice, but I think it's good to have high-level cases in the field of anti-corruption to demonstrate the willingness and the commitment of the authorities to fight against corruption, to fight against organized crime, and by so gaining the trust of the citizens. So, of course, we will follow the developments in this high-profile case. As EU, we cannot, it's not our competence to deal with asset recovery in our member states. It's a competence of our member states, but I know that there are discussions underway in Germany, for instance, which was mentioned, to deal with this issue. But it's more a question to the German authorities and to the European Union institutions. On the second question, I mean, we see risk that there is a shift from a parliamentary system to a more authoritarian. And as I said, if it is the will of the population, I think that's good. That's why we need to be sure that the whole process is managed in a democratic way, that amendments to the constitutions are carefully weighted, are checked by external experts, that elections, referendum are done in a fair, transparent way, inclusive way. Otherwise, there will be, again, revolutions or people going down to the streets. I mean, if again, there is a feeling among the citizens that elections are not totally fair and are rigged. So we will closely follow that. I mean, the 6 million of the digitalization program, I understand in any case, it would have been difficult for us to pay this year for technical reasons. But as I said in the, let's say, anti-COVID package or COVID-related package, we already delivered 40 million, which is more than the 36 which had been announced initially. So we are doing more than we had said in terms of supporting the society in Kyrgyzstan in the fight against COVID and the recovery process after the COVID. So we will look at the elections, first of all the presidential, and we will look at the referendum which might take place to amend the constitution. And I can only repeat what I said in the beginning. It will be extremely useful to have a date of the parliamentary election as soon as possible, and not wait, as I heard sometimes, the second half of 21. I think it should be in the first half of next year, and this will be in line with the constitution. It will also be in line with, I understand what the people were expecting. I mean, they want, first of all, free and fair parliamentary elections. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yarocevich, for your statement, for your answer to these two questions. We are already approaching the end of today's event. I would like to give the floor once again to each of our three speakers. And please say, or please give us an outline what the development of EU-Kyrgyz relations might be in the near future. Let's say in the next year, in the next 2 years to come. We have heard a lot about the internal situation in Kyrgyzstan. We've learned a lot, but now I think we should, at the end of our today's event, come to this international dimension. So what is the cooperation about? What is the perspective? I would like to start with Mr. Ambassador. I would then come to Mr. Майер, and since Mr. Yarocevich was the last person to deliver his short address at the beginning, he will now have the opportunity to close the event with his short contribution. Thank you. Please, Mr. Ambassador.
First of all, thank you very much, Dr. Marcus, that you've been able to bring together all of us for the discussions, including our compatriots in Kyrgyzstan, which is also, I see they're expressing questions online. So this is very good. It gives us food for thought. And also, it is good that European Union, as a partner for Kyrgyzstan in democracy, for democracy, they stay with us. And I'm sure that Kyrgyzstan in the Central Asia is a only country with the parliamentary democracy, so we should not be alone there. So the closest democracy in parliamentary democracy is for us in the region of Central Asia is Mongolia, and then European Union. So we definitely count on the partnership from the European Union. And as my compatriot raised the issue regarding the 6 million euro, asking European Union not to release it. I think so. This is the sources actually. This is not related to the political relations with European Union. This, as Boris already mentioned, that this is the technical problem. So this is important for us. And however, we still continue consultations with European Union to release these sources for Kyrgyzstan as soon as possible, since this is COVID-19 related finance. This is already distributed in the budget of Kyrgyzstan. So for us, the political situation is separate from the situation which we should face finance the people. And since this is resources was oriented to the digitalization, this is also already being prepared for the reforms in the education sector. So since we are shifting to the distance learning, we should provide the distance learning opportunity for the kids who live in the mountainous area where there's no internet, no access to the computers. So this should be not a penalty for what we are facing in Kyrgyzstan in terms of the political situation. So that is why we strongly believe and hope the continuation of our financial payments to Kyrgyzstan in terms of what we have already agreed. I see that the future of Kyrgyzstan's cooperation is as it is. So we as already I mentioned, we are proud of that cooperation which exists with European Union. We enjoy in many different sectors, political, economical, among the parliaments, and there is no need any change. So we continue, and there is no any bad implications in our relations because of what we are facing in Kyrgyzstan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. Thank you very much for your participation. Dr. Майер, please.
Yeah, thanks everybody for participation. So my conclusion remarks. Kyrgyzstan now next year is celebrating a very special year. It's the 30th year of independence, and it should be a quite peaceful year also with developments for his citizens. After 30 years of experience from different sources, internal resources also from different partner countries all over the world, I think in one last big reform attempt, the country should find a state organization which really fits to this country. And I think also for me it's important that we have a stable public and local administration. And we need for the development of this country stable, qualified cadres, staff in public and local administrations to guarantee the development of this country. So this is for me one of the priorities, but I wish also success in this upcoming reform process, that it is creating a model which really fits to the needs of this country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Майер. And the last address for today, Mr. Yarocevich, please.
Yes, thank you. I mean, we have continued our dialogues in the past months. We had in September the Human Rights Dialogue with Kyrgyzstan. And now we are preparing several joint platforms or fora that should take place in the coming weeks and months. We have what we call a cooperation committee, a cooperation council. We have to find a suitable date for that. We are also working on the new partnership and cooperation agreement, the enhanced partnership and cooperation agreement. It will have to go to the Parliament, European Parliament, and there will be discussions definitely next year, not only about the democratic process, but also about some human rights cases, like the case of Mr. Askarov, which should not be forgotten. So we expect a lively debate in the European Parliament before it ratifies the EPCA with Kyrgyzstan. And otherwise, Kyrgyzstan continues to participate in all our multilateral, let's say, fora. We will have the ministerial meeting with Central Asia in 2 weeks. We have a number of fora that we're preparing, economic forum. We plan a civil society forum next year in Bishkek, which will be a regional one. So for the time being, we continue, to welcome the participation, of course, of the Kyrgyz Republic in all our Central Asian programs and projects. Of course, we will be once again closely looking at the conditions in which the elections will take place, the presidential ones, parliamentarian ones, how and when the constitution will be amended. And this might have an impact on our assistance in the future or in our relations. For instance, GSP Plus has also some conditions which need to be respected. But for the time being, we are working with authorities on a number of topics, and we are looking forward in positive developments in Kyrgyzstan in the next months. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Yarocevich, as well, very much. So there are a lot of events to come in the next year in terms of the relation between the European Union and Kyrgyzstan. We are looking forward to hosting events in Brussels once again. So we would be honored to have honorable and distinguished guests from Kyrgyzstan, but it depends on the health situation, of course, so we are hoping for the best. Thank you all very much for your contributions. I would like to thank all the participants that they were with us today. When you leave now the room, you will be forwarded to a survey platform. Please feel free to tell us your opinion about today's event. We would be very happy to have this opinion. And last but not least, a big thanks goes to our two interpreters for their today's work. Without their support, we would not have been able to organize this discussion, both in English and in Russian. Thank you very much, and we hope to see you soon at an event organized by the Hannsa Zайdelya Stiftung. Goodbye.
Thank you.